me, Mwenda Binjiwe. He's been with us a couple of times. Thank you for joining us again, Mwenda Binjiwe.
Thank you.
And right from New York, we've also got Abdullahi Boru. He's a Horn of Africa specialist joining us via Skype. Thank you very much for joining us, Abdullahi. We'll start with analyzing what I'm going to call the maybes and the maybe nots, because we really don't know, or rather there are too many pointers in different directions about who exactly is responsible with the attacks. Let me just start with our first graphic, Abdullahi and Mwenda, with regard to who could be responsible. In the first scenario, if I can just get it on screen here so we can all take a look, is local political networks, right? Local political networks in the maybe of this, and it'll come on screen in a few seconds. The maybe about this is very interesting. I mean, if it's local political networks, there have been reports of MRC that have been recruiting. We've heard them. There were media reports that had come out. There's also land grievances. That's a low-hanging fruit, right? Everybody knows what Mpeketoni was. It was a settlement scheme. Of course, there's also the TJRC report on the tensions that have been residing there in Mpeketoni since that settlement scheme was formed in the 70s during the Kenyatta regime. Do you believe in this line of thinking, in this theory about who could be responsible, and that's also what the president was saying?
Yes, certainly. You see, when there are pestering issues that have been in a community for a long time, it's possible that criminals can, take advantage of those pestering issues. Yeah. They can be exploited, for a certain political or, any other dimension of intention. And so, really looking at all these issues, especially the land issue, it is likely, and you see, we've always known that the coastal province, the coastal region, has had this problem of land for a long time.
Land is an explosive
This has been a very explosive issue, not only at the coastal region, but all over the country. And I think government has put this as one of their major priorities. We saw the president started, sometime last year to give out title deeds to Kenyans.
Of title deeds. Speaking of the president, let's just take a listen to what he said yesterday in his statement with regard to the attacks and absolving the AlShabaab of any blame. Maybe Paris, our director, can roll that for us now. Have people at home and here listen to what the president said with regard to those AlShabaab attacks.
This, therefore, was not an AlShabaab terrorist attack. Evidence indicates that local political networks were involved in the planning and execution of the heinous crime. This also played into the opportunist network of other criminal gangs. It is now clear that intelligence on this attack was availed to security officers in Mpeketoni.
All right, Abdullahi, before we go on with Mwenda, thanks again for joining us from New York. What do you think of that line of reasoning, that it was politically motivated, land issues mixed in there, and perhaps the local politicians that are contributing to some militia going and perpetrating these killings? Of course, remember that also the people who died were predominantly, quite a large number of them were from one community, Abdullahi.
Thank you, Namu, for having me on board. I think I'll probably disagree with the president and also Ndugu Binjiwe. I think we know that there are tremendous amount of grievances along the Kenyan coast. It's not just a question of land, it's a question of feeling disempowered, it's a question of being disenfranchised for a very long time. And some of these issues were expressed through the MRC, which was a legitimate organization, which was an organically evolved legitimate organization. They went to court after they were denied registration and their leaders arrested.
Yes, well, Abdullahi, the MRC is also being blamed for this. I mean, that's a talk in security circles. People haven't been specific to who those networks are, those political networks are, the MRC being involved. Remember, prior to us going into Somalia, MRC was a big bad wolf in that region.
Absolutely. It was the lowest hanging fruit. And after that, everything, anything and everything that happens along the Kenyan coast was blamed on MRC, and now everything has shifted to AlShabaab. I'll be very careful to push that line as far as MRC is concerned, because the clear thing is, why was it very difficult? Why is it very difficult now for people to accept that this is an AlShabaab attack when they have released an audio saying that they were the ones who participated.
Abdullahi, hold that thought. We're going to get to that in a moment. We still have the maybe nots to analyze now. And
right.
Ladies and gentlemen at home, there's so many issues that we need to discuss with regard to why this might not be an attack that was perpetrated using local networks, local militia networks. One of them, of course, is coming on screen just now, and we'll continue that discussion with Mwenda Binjiwe. One of those is the sophistication of the attack. Let's not hide. I mean, that attack had all the markings of people who had some sort of military or some sort of militaristic knowledge, Mwenda, sophistication. We talked about this the other day. Think about what with regard to that, and the next one's coming on right there. It is sophistication of the attack. The MRC's strongest support base also is in Kilifi and in Kwale. That's something that a lot of people haven't been thinking about. How about the maybe nots here now?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, the military precision with which this attack was carried out, including being able to keep it under the radar of the intelligence and the security machinery, these attackers were not only effective in hiding, in doing it under they could not be detected by the security machinery around at the time of the attack. Mm-hmm. The intelligence, as the president said, may have found and may have known about it, but at the time of the execution, they were able to get away from the security dragnet.
Yeah.
Now, this brings in...
Actually, before you go on, one key thing that perhaps may be a pointer to this being a very sophisticated attack was the attack first on a police station. Maybe you can just speak about that.
Yeah, absolutely. You see, this was, as I said, it was effected with the utmost military precision. They had identified targets and the effectiveness of those targets in stopping the attack. And first of all, they had to eliminate that which would have been a deterrence to the attack, and this was the police station. They not only disabled the police station, the police vehicles, which they burnt. Therefore, the police cannot give a chase. Yeah. They also they looted the armory. Yeah. They took away all the ammo and the guns there. And 3, they also disabled the communication equipment.
Plus, they also had their own weapons, semi-automatic rifles. The clashes that took place in Tana River, Kilelengwani, Semikaro being some of the hotspots. A lot of those attacks, the weapons of choice were blunt instruments, pangas, machetes, spears. There's lots of differences to read here. But I have to add, though, that this attack, in terms of the people who were victimized, seems like some sort of an anomaly. Linda Ogutu here spoke to Andrew Franklin, a security analyst, and he thought that over and above being of one tribe, it might be more of a Christian perspective that was being pursued there. What do you think?
Yeah, absolutely. You see, that is an area also that is predominantly Christian. However, what we have seen over time, the wedge, anyone who has tried to attack this country, even the terrorists who have done it in the past, it's been very hard for them to drive the wedge of religious division among us. It's been so painful for Kenyans to bear it, but Kenyans have borne this with a lot of love for their country and patriotism and love for each other. This religious thing may not have been exactly the motivation in this attack. Taking it to the ethnic dimension that it took actually was meant to have results, and it looks like it really achieved more results than even those people anticipated.
All right, let's just hold that there. And speaking about who might be responsible for the attack, the president has been outright about it not being AlShabaab. However, from Somalia today, we received some audio that contradicts quite a bit of what the president is saying. This is from the military spokesman for the AlShabaab, Abdulaziz Abu Mushkad. Just listen in. There's translations on screen, so you'll be able to follow his speaking in Somali, of course. Listen in and hear what he had to say.
saacadu markay ahayd 2 saac oo fiidnimo markay mujaahidiintu gacanta ay ku dhigeen magaalada Mpeketoni waxa ay ka bilaabeen hawlo sifayn cadowga ku jira magaaladaas lagu sifaynay ayada oo la taarigsanay dad gaara oo la og yahay oo la rabay in maxawaya khadka laga saaro la doonay dadka gaarka waxa jira burbur hantiyeed sida saldhiga booliska oo magaaladaas mujaahidiintu waa ay burburiyeen waa ay gubeen waxay kala mujaahidiintu baabi'iyeen hoteello ay cadowgu lahaayeen iyo wixii yaalay ayay dab qabadsiiyeen sidoo kale bangiyo ayaa jira la baabaashay kaalimo shidaal iyo gaadiid fara badan oo cadowgu lahaa halkaa ku gubtay ciidanka mujaahidiintu waxay magaalada Mpeketoni gacanta ku hayeen muddo dhan 10 saacadood min laga soo bilaabo fiidnimadii ilaa 10 aroornimo ayay mujaahidiintu gacanta ku hayeen.
All right, that was audio that was given to us courtesy of the website that you just saw there. I'll go to Abdulaziz. Look, you are of the thinking that it might not be political. That's the military spokesman of the AlShabaab, we believe, that spoke those words and admitted to the attack. What do you make? But before that, there's a rider to this. The AlShabaab has the luxury of admitting to anything under the sun. Any attack within East Africa, it could admit to it simply because the oxygen for a terrorist is propaganda and it being shared publicly.
Absolutely, and in that regard, you know, I mean, they've won this information war, because right now all we are getting distracted along our political and ethnic lines as to who actually caused this, when in reality they know that they have inflicted a tremendous amount of damage to the country, let alone including the lives lost as well as the property destroyed and the tourism industry that has been affected. But I want to get back to the question about AlShabaab. For all its weaknesses, that we know this group is weak now. It's not as strong as it used to be.
Yeah.
This group has got the capacity to carry out these kinds of attacks, and there is no way that they will allow local groups to do this, because this is a fairly high-tech, sophisticated kind of attack.
And they want to preserve the intelligence and information bubble within them. That's something that we understand. But I get that we're being joined online by Gedenji Ndungu from the National Defense Committee. Mr. Ndungu, can you hear me? And I'd just like you to contribute to this with respect to the allegation that the AlShabaab may be, and this is coming from the AlShabaab from Somalia, that the AlShabaab may indeed be responsible for this, contradicting what the president said. Mr. Gedenji.
Yes, I just wanted to weigh in on this debate. The audio we're receiving, I mean, we have no verification of where it's coming from. This could easily have been done here in Nairobi, any suburb of Nairobi or anywhere else.
Mm-hmm.
But I wanted us to focus our minds on the actual attack itself, and how it was executed and the manner in which it played out, because it clearly departs from any modus operandi that we know of AlShabaab and the tactics of the Mujahideen. If you look at the previous terrorist attacks, we know AlShabaab and their attackers on the ground, known as Mujahideen, are predominantly suicide troops.
Mm-hmm.
In essence, when they enter a theater of operation, their intention is not necessarily to get out, to escape. They are ready to die for their cause, and they're not predominantly focused on how they will exit.
That's true. That's true with respect to some of the attacks that have taken place in Somalia. Mr. Gedenji, if I can just interrupt.
In the Mpeketoni attack,
yeah,
it was very clear. The operation had a very clear insertion strategy, attack strategy, and an extraction.
Yes.
In the extraction strategy, there was a clear, determined effort to obliterate forensic evidence by destroying the vehicle and burning it to cinder.
Yeah.
To ensure that there will be no audit trail, forensic audit trail to follow.
Okay,
that
but
is clearly not a typical AlShabaab MO.
The contradiction to this, Mr. Gedenji, if I can just interrupt, is this. Remember the attack that took place a couple of weeks ago in Mogadishu when agents of the AlShabaab attacked the parliament in Mogadishu, very close to Villa Somalia, engaged the AMISOM troops there in a gunfight, and also withdrew. I mean, that also is an anomaly if we go by the assertion that AlShabaab always commits suicide attacks.
Withdrawing is always an option in an operation, but why would you go to the extent of obliterating the audit trail? Why would you go to the extent of burning the vehicles and burning any evidence that would be available for forensic audit to identify the perpetrators of the attack? That is very clear strategy on behalf of the attackers, that they didn't want their identity to be known.
Yeah.
And leaving a note on the scene of the crime saying AlShabaab is a first hint that it's certainly not AlShabaab.
All right, that's a good point. Wenda will come back to you with this with respect to something that we also discussed, and what Ndungo is talking about, burning evidence of they being present. Is that a pointer, a red herring, that it's not AlShabaab, or that it is AlShabaab but local agents? Let's just look at the maybe nots about AlShabaab, whether it was AlShabaab in terms of rather this is local politics. The maybe nots for AlShabaab is, of course, the president's statement, right, that it wasn't AlShabaab, right, and also the lapses in acting on intelligence that the president spoke about and referred to with respect to it being local agents.
Political networks, yeah.
Yeah, I mean that's something that we have to speak about. Also, what Ndomo said, this style of attack is a bit of an anomaly when you think about AlShabaab. We'll talk about that in a moment. Let's just take a short break first, and we'll be back on KTN Prime to discuss the if, buts, and the maybes about these attacks in Mpeketoni. Back after the break.